the only thing that we can change is ourselves. And when we find that when we change ourselves, our whole system changes. It has to. And a lot of women feel like that's some kind of promise, like, oh, okay, well, if I get better, if I get healthier, my relationship will be saved. That's not the promise, right? The promise is that as you get healthier, your people around you will change. And sometimes that means having to let go of a relationship.
Oh, yes.
And that's hard. It's hard. And my answer to that is don't think about that right now.
Spend like 1 minute on social media and you're going to see something about toxic masculinity or feminine energy, divine feminine. She's in her feminine. She's not in her feminine. What does it all mean? It's a lot. And if you are coming out of a marriage or you're in a relationship where you feel like you've been overfunctioning and you just want to like feel like a woman again, and there's so much shame around that, you've come to the right place, because I'm talking with none other than Dr. Zoe Shaw. She's a phenomenal, phenomenal human, especially on this subject. She's also a licensed psychotherapist, author, speaker, and a complex shame expert. Hello, that shame associated with divorce. I'm so excited you're here and you're going to meet her, and let's get into it. I don't even know if I should say like Zoe, Dr. Zoe Shaw. Like, I want to be professional and respectful here.
Yeah, just Dr. Zoe.
Well, that I can do,
Not
Dr.
taking my
Zoe.
last name.
I always think about like if I earned the title of doctor, I would literally make my kids call me doctor. Like you respect that title, okay?
Yes, yes.
Well,
And
I'm
you're
so
are
happy.
you getting your master's right now? Or
Getting
did you get it?
another mess. So the long and short of that is yes. Like I have two already, and thought to
Fun.
myself about a year and a half ago, why don't I go and get another one, this time in marriage and family therapy? But I realized after one semester doing that as a mom in the evening hours was a lot harder than I had
Right.
anticipated for. So now I'm taking my time. It's probably
Good
going
for
to take
you.
me 10 years to
Good
finish.
for
I
you.
just love like the literature, and I love studying it. Like, I don't even care if I make it to the degree part. It's just such interesting stuff, as you know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
So you specialize in working with which types of clients?
So I work specifically with women who are dealing with codependency and complex shame. So I work with women in difficult relationships who have their own complex shame and are codependent. Yeah.
Well, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I actually coined the term complex shame because what I started to see in myself, I have my own shame journey, and with other women, is that this concept of shame being able to be healed through vulnerability and experiencing empathy and compassion for other people doesn't work in all kinds of shame. And so I
Mm.
started wondering what's the type of shame that's not working the traditional route for healing. And so I started to really do a deep dive into myself and my life because I experienced that type of shame and the life of my clients. And what I found was that there's a particular type of shame that happens for a couple of reasons. Sometimes, early trauma, um, being marginalized by society. And also, what happens with shame is that when we have a shaming incident, we often, of course, we hide. And then what often happens is we hurt ourselves. We do things to damage ourselves in the process of trying to hide from our shame. And in doing that, we blame ourselves for whatever happened to us or whatever our shame is. And so when we try to finally, sometimes some women never get there, but when we try to receive empathy and vulnerability from other people or compassion from other people, we can't accept it because there's a part of us that's like, oh, but you don't understand, you don't really
Wow.
know, right? And so we're not able to accept that, and our shame instead runs deeper. The other way our shame can kind of get deeper with complex shame is that we do attempt to get some empathy and compassion from somebody else and they gaslight us about our experience. And so then it makes us hide. It
I
makes us go
literally have
deeper.
I This is so relatable and real.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what I do is I specialize in helping women understand their shame, overcome complex shame, because complex shame and codependency go very well together, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more on that, because I'm feeling like this is something I probably should learn.
Yeah.
So complex shame and codependency, um, where do you see this sort of coming to a head, like bubbling to the surface for your clients? Is it in the wake of a bad relationship? Is it in having just constant upset and disappointments in their personal relationships? Or, I mean, is it just, it doesn't really fit to one occasion for everyone?
Right. It doesn't necessarily, but what I find is that women who deal with complex shame often are high achieving women, and they manage to kind of just go along and achieve to a certain extent until that defense mechanism breaks down. And
Okay.
there's something, sometimes it's an inciting incident, something happening in a relationship. For me, it was the birth of my daughter who had a complex developmental disorder that really began my spiral because I believed that I was being punished by God because I placed my first daughter for adoption. Long story in my story. But for women, there's usually an inciting incident that just crumbles the defense mechanisms that they had built so strongly over their complex shame. And then there's kind of like a spiraling down. And either they go to therapy and try to figure it out and get help, or they stay in a place of self-sabotage. They kind of plateau in their career. Relationships fall apart. Some don't ever really get out of that space. And so my goal is to help women, first of all, not get there, not have to hit rock bottom
Hmm.
before you need help, to really understand how their shame is affecting them in their life. And then number two, if you have, find a way out.
Yeah. Well, that self-sabotage piece is so
Mhm.
real for so many people. And I think especially if you come from having experienced trauma as a child, right? And like the world feels unsafe. You're going to put yourself in these situations
Mhm.
where it kind of mirrors what you experienced, or you're going to make sure it feels that way because that's what
Absolutely.
you know. And I mean, that was a part of my journey for so long. And it, like you, it took having my daughter to realize, like, wait a second, I can't keep creating this self-fulfilling prophecy that only I was responsible for. And
Right.
that's a huge realization to come to, that like I might be like the common denominator here.
You are. Anyone out there listening, you are. And yes, there are other pieces of it, but the only thing that we can change is ourselves. And when we find that when we change ourselves, our whole system changes. It has to. And a lot of women feel like that's some kind of promise, like, oh, okay, well, if I get better, if I get healthier, my relationship will be saved. That's not the promise, right? The promise is that as you get healthier, your people around you will change. And sometimes that means having to let go of a relationship.
Oh,
And
yes.
that's hard. It's hard. And my answer to that is don't think about that right now.
Right.
Because if you get healthier and the result is that a healthier, happier life is that, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. I feel like women go too far, they take too many steps ahead and they get scared. And so they don't want to do the work because what they don't want to do is lose that relationship.
And they come to recognize, at least I did, that losing, and it's not just like intimate relationships. It can
Right.
be the friendships you kept yourself in just because you were accepting or tolerant of certain behaviors that maybe you're now realizing you don't deserve. It's that
Right.
act of self-compassion that you get to, where I guess you have to approach without shame and shatter that
Mhm.
codependency that you've maintained. Anyway, there's this, like, like everything else, internet, social media has become just rife with pop psychology terms,
Yeah.
and you should do this or you should be
Yeah.
that or this person is this because they said that. I see a lot coming up about feminine energy, masculine energy. Oh, she was in her masculine and now she's in her feminine. And I think on the, at the lowest level, it's like, okay, feminine, girly, masculine, manly. But what does this all mean in terms of our relationships and sense of selves?
Yeah. I have to be honest, I'm very concerned about us as a society and us in terms of relationships. And part of it is about this whole feminine masculine energy. The reality is that as much as our society gives voice to honoring femininity, it really doesn't. So there's that saying, don't believe what someone says, believe what they do. And so if you look at society as a whole, femininity is not valued. And women know that. And so, unfortunately, especially with high achieving women, what the drive is often to hide their femininity, right? To hide it so that they can achieve. And this is, making its way, of course, into our relationships. And it's really damaging our relationships. And we have the whole concept of toxic masculinity. We talk very little about toxic femininity. Um, But my concern is that women, number one, they're not valuing femininity. And because they're not valuing femininity, they are not allowing themselves to be in relationship in a feminine way. And the reality about femininity is that, like you said, it's not just about flowers and pretty dresses and
Right, I
makeup.
was gonna ask you, like, what is it
What is
and how are we hiding it?
Right. So true femininity actually is the strongest force on this earth. So if you look at babies in the NICU, what we know is that girls survive at a higher rate than boys, right? If you look at just biological and the research, what we know is that yes, men are stronger, right? They can lift heavier things, but
Right.
women can hold them longer. Women have higher stamina, women have um, higher, like more resilience, and emotionally, women are stronger. So, what is femininity? Femininity is a caring, strong, nurturing energy. It's not anything other than that, really. We women are bathed in estrogen from the before we are born, and that estrogen does allow us to be caretakers. It also drives our mama bear instincts, right? All of that strength of women. And a feminine energy is emotionally safe. So, or provides a space, I should say, for emotional safety. And so, what's masculine energy? Masculine energy is physically protective. Masculine energy should be, healthy masculine energy should be stable, should be dependable, should be very solid, right?
Mhm.
And yes, there should be some emotional safety with masculine energy as well. But when we look at relationships, we have to acknowledge that men and women are different biologically, and there are people who feel uncomfortable even saying that. And of course, we're equal, but we are biologically different and we are made to complement each other, right? And so, in a healthy relationship, when we look at a system, systems are, you know, relationships are systems, and systems react to the other part of the system.
Mhm.
And so in a healthy system, we have this feminine energy, which is caring, which is nurturing, which is emotionally safe, and we have this masculine energy, which is physically caring and solid and stable. And when they work together, it's beautiful.
Mhm.
But most relationships these days are very much out of whack. And so what happens is men actually benefit from women operating in their masculinity.
Right,
And
right.
at the same time, they are repulsed by it.
They're like, I want a girl who looks good and takes care of me, but also I want you to do all this, for
Yep.
yourself. I don't wanna have to do it for you.
Right.
Yeah, I it's and but that is why you like you said, you're concerned about the state of relationships today. It's because, I'm sure you and I are probably somewhere in the same age range, but, like, we grew up with, like, I'm a survivor, like, independent woman, like, I Miss Independent, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I wanna be all those things, but, like, I also still like, for me, I had a very hard time learning to be anything else when I entered this phase of healing in my life, and I didn't know how to receive from the masculine end because I was always doing the masculine job, like, I it was too scary to be anything else, and now that I am in my feminine, or at least I feel like I am, and it
Mhm.
feels so good, like, I
Does
love
it?
it. I
Oh
love
my
it. But it's
goodness.
like, "Oh, like, what are you, a trad wife? Like, that's so
Mm.
traditional and old school." I'm like, "I don't know. For me, it just feels natural."
Right. Well, here's the thing I can promise almost every woman who's listening to this podcast now, because they're either contemplating divorce or they are in the process, right? When women do not feel safe in a relationship, their masculine energy rises. And so I can promise you, you have been operating in masculine energy.
That is
And
it.
what happens is that as you come out of this relationship, you're going to continue that because for a number of reasons. Number one, you're by yourself now, you're single, right? And as you enter new relationships, you're likely to show up with this masculine energy and
Mhm.
it's going to affect the relationship.
1000%, and I remember when I came out of my first marriage, and it was like a snowball effect
Yep.
of trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma into bad relationship after bad
Yes.
relationship where I always had to like overfunction and do the work of both. And now here I am with somebody who is not requiring that of me.
Right.
The work to unlearn
Yeah.
and be open to receiving in the way that I should have been my entire life was harder than the pain of being in all these bad relationships. And I think for anyone listening who's like, me, I'm ready to be in my feminine energy. For context, I'm with my husband now 8 years post my
Mhm.
second husband.
Mhm.
I would say it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago where felt fully ready to just let that guard down and step fully into the feminine. It was
Mhm.
very hard to do.
It's very hard and it's scary. And one of the reasons is that we've been socialized to see our feminine energy as weak
Weak.
and vulnerable,
Mhm.
right?
And
And the
high
very last
maintenance
thing, would you
and
say high
needy. High
maintenance?
maintenance and needy.
Yes, yes. And that the very last thing we want to be is weak, vulnerable, high maintenance, and needy, right?
Mhm.
That is so scary. And so we push away from it. If instead we can see our feminine energy as powerful, right? As a powerful, nurturing energy that is necessary in a relationship, you may be able to shift the lens. But the other thing is that when you see feminine energy as weak and vulnerable, you don't want to be hurt in a relationship. And so you hide. And so a lot of women will tell me, well, when I get in a relationship and he's proven himself to me and I can finally trust him, then I will settle into my feminine energy. And my answer is, you're not going to get to that place in the relationship.
Now,
You're
you
going
set
to
the
keep
standard right away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're going to keep having, relationship after relationship, or you set that standard and you have to continue in that, right, as time goes on. What you have to do is trust yourself.
Yeah. No, you really do, but that's so hard to do
Oh,
when
it's hard.
you've been so,
Yeah.
um, taught the opposite, I guess, as a kid, but I'm laughing because when I first met my husband, my mom was like, "Michelle, let him do things for you. The
My mom
way."
said the same thing.
She's like, "You condition them in the beginning. You set the standard." And because I remember calling her, I'm like, This dude asked if I need anything from Publix. Like, I can't go get my own groceries." And she's like, "Oh my God, say yes. Just say yes." I'm like, "I don't need anything." She's like, "Say yes. Trust me."
I have to tell you the story because when I first started dating my partner, not too long after my divorce, he went with me. I had to mail this huge crate package thing, I don't know, 40 pounds or whatever at the airport. So he went with me to the airport. And I immediately got out of the car, went to the back before he could even get out of the car. And I'm like struggling, trying to get this big package out of the back of the car. And I turned around and he was just standing behind me looking at me. And he was like, "Why am I even here?" And it was interesting because then we had this huge conversation afterwards, and it never dawned on me that he would help me or to ask for his help. But here's the thing that women have to realize: can I get the package out of the car? Sure, I can. Could he do it easier? Yeah, he's stronger, he's bigger, of course. Men need to be needed, and that's
Oh,
part of their
that's the
masculine
other part.
energy. Yes.
Mm,
Men need to be needed. And when we don't allow them to do the things that they want to and need to do for us, they can't be in their masculine energy. And they do one of two things: either they puff up and they become toxic, in their masculinity, or they shrink back and they become passive, which we don't want, but we create it in relationships
mhm,
sometimes, right?
mhm.
And so a lot of women will say, well, what do I have to do? Pretend like I need help, pretend like I need something from Publix when I don't.
Right.
Well, it's not about pretending, it's just about
Allowing.
allowing him to do that and allowing him to be needed.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to move into if all you've ever known is the opposite. So,
Right.
here's my question because, we're talking about high achieving women and how frequently they are not aligned with their feminine side or in the feminine energy as they say. You're a high achieving woman. I'd like to think of myself as one.
You
How
are.
do you bridge the gap? Like obviously there's room for both.
Yeah. When you say, how do you bridge the gap between, well, I
Between Yeah, no, but spell it out for us.
Yeah, because I'm even hearing you assume that high achieving means masculine,
Right,
right?
well, that is the view, right? Like, she's a hustler, she doesn't need anyone, that type of mindset, and then you kind of start to live in that mindset of, like, if I can do all of this, then I don't need help from anybody.
Mhm. Mhm. You have to recognize that it's a lie,
Mhm.
because every woman, if she's being honest with herself, wants to be cared for. Now, do we need somebody to take care of us fully? Absolutely not. But every woman wants to be cared for in some way, shape, or form. And by having that "I got it" syndrome, by saying "I don't need," it's actually a lie. Just because you don't need a man to pay your bills doesn't mean you don't need a man.
Mm,
And
love that.
yeah. Yeah.
I wish I
And
met you 8 years ago.
and specifically, we've got to let our men know that we need them.
Mhm,
And that feels so weak as a woman,
mhm,
right? It
mhm,
can because we've been socialized that femininity is weak. But if we say, no, I don't need you to pay my bills. I don't need you to take care of me necessarily, but I need you. I need all of the things that you can offer me. Number one, because of who you are uniquely as a person. And number two, because of your masculine energy that feels protected, that actually can allow me to go do all those things that I want to and need to do out in the world because I know that I have this solid, protective, masculine man at home, if that
mhm.
makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness. It's until you are I think also it comes with getting older,
Mm,
stepping more into who you are, accepting who you are. I know for me, a lot of that happened, late 40s, like late 30s, turning 40. I'm now 41. And it's like, I really am in this space of accepting like who I am,
yep.
what has happened to me, what I've learned from it, and what I really want to feel. But for anyone who's kind of like in that in between space, like listening to this and thinking, I need help on this topic, or I'm ready for a divorce, and what does this mean for who I am and my identity? What are some ways for somebody to recognize in themselves if they've been far outside of their feminine energy?
Yeah, I'm guessing that most women listening to this will feel that way and they're going to feel like it's too late. Like I've been operating in this way for so long and I can't imagine being in a relationship that feels that safe that I could let go in that
Mhm.
way.
Mhm.
And what I would like to encourage her to do is allow herself to dream and hope that that is a possibility. Because if it is a possibility for some people, you, Michelle, me, other people who've experienced that in relationship after having experienced a relationship where they were not safe in, then it is also possible for you. But what it will require is for you to begin to make friends with that nurturing, emotional, caretaking. And when I talk about caretaking, I'm not talking about doing dishes or cooking food. I'm really talking about being an emotionally safe space. It will require you to be that for yourself
Mhm.
first
Mm.
before you can learn to do it for anybody else.
Oh, yeah. Oh my god, it's like the oxygen mask, right? And
Yep.
it's so funny and, like, counterproductive. We are so good, some of us, myself and you, at taking care of our children, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
we would bleed out, give them the sun, moon, and
Yes.
stars, and then it comes to giving it to yourself, and it sometimes feels out of body, like you don't even know how to do it, but,
Hmm.
my mantra has started to be, "I'm gonna take care of me the way I take care of her," which is ruthlessly,
Yes. That's beautiful.
ruthlessly.
Because if we don't, what we are teaching our children, especially our daughters and even our sons, is that as a woman, you should take care of yourself for a period of time and then you should lose yourself
Mhm,
because that's what they will watch you doing. Like you care for your daughter and care for her. But if she sees you not caring for yourself at all, then she learns that eventually she's supposed to do the same thing.
mhm.
Right. And we don't want to teach that to our
That's a
children.
solid point. Yeah, for
Right.
sure. If you're like me, you could definitely use some extra cash right now. So if you're sitting on old engagement jewelry, jewelry that's been collecting dust in a drawer that you're like, why do I even still have this? I've got news for you. The experts at Worthy can help you turn that into cash. The cash you could probably use right now on your single parenting journey. It's risk free, it's fast, literally no more than 2 weeks until you are joining one of the 80,000 people who have already had their jewelry turned into cash. Thousands of people have left verified 5-star reviews. This is a legit process that will make you feel so much lighter and your pockets a lot fuller. Trust me, these guys are the real deal. So all you need to do is visit worthy.com/moms, and I'm going to give you an extra $100 on me if your jewelry sells for over 1,500. That's worthy.com/moms, and I've got you covered. Now, I hear a lot about, we've toxic masculinity was like a trend for a while where everybody was talking about it. And now we're hearing about all of these wonderful men who have stepped into their feminine.
Mm.
Like, is there a way to do both? Like, I mean, we're talking about hetero relationships and hetero norms, and perhaps a separate conversation would be good to talk about non-hetero situations, but in the hetero sense, Is it healthy for, people to adapt both parts of them in order to make this relationship work and sort of meet each other where they're at on the daily when someone's feeling less than or more than, like how does that all play out? Because I love a man who's in touch with his emotions.
Absolutely. I think also that we make the mistake of thinking that masculine energy isn't in touch with emotions,
Ooh,
that masculine
yeah, I just did
energy
that.
is
Mhm.
just, logical and doesn't experience that. And the reality is that unhealthy masculinity is that, just like there's unhealthy femininity as well. Um, but healthy masculinity, when paired with healthy femininity, you provide an emotionally safe space for your man and he will open up and
Mhm.
he will be able to attach himself to his emotional self because you've given him that space to do it.
Mhm.
And so a healthy relationship that's both masculine and feminine, you will have a man that can talk about your emotions, that can have those very deep, loving conversations, that is romantic because he feels safe. He feels safe as a man to be able to express that. And yes, we all have masculine and feminine energy, but he shows up with his masculine energy in a very caring, loving, romantic way.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that. And I think, I don't know, we are the generation that is really turning the tide on what it means to be a man, right? It's not the
Mhm.
tough guy, have no emotions. We're now realizing like that didn't serve us very well. And now we have all these people getting divorced because
Yes.
this man is emotionally stunted. This woman,
Right.
in his opinion, has too many emotions. Like no one learned how to deal with any of this. And I feel like we're healing in that way. Um, but I want to ask about, because people will come to me divorce curious, I should say,
Mhm.
and can this be saved? Can this not be saved? And I'm not, I'm not a marriage counselor yet, but there are times where I'm like, listen, I think you still have work to do here. Like this is salvageable, or maybe this is not, right? Is there an instance where your relationship has been functioning like in the way that we're talking about? Like you're not in your feminine,
Mhm.
he's a complete toxic masculine
Yeah.
person. Can there be a shift in both people enough where this works? Or is it kind of like if you've been like this for 15, 20 years, it's too far gone?
No, there can absolutely be a shift, but here's the thing, it takes the intention of two people.
Right. And incredible self-awareness.
It does. And unfortunately, that's rare. I truly believe that any marriage can be saved. Any marriage, no matter what is going on in that marriage, I truly believe any marriage can be saved. But it's rare that two people are able to be present and intentional in such a way to make that happen.
Hmm.
I have a couple, and I have been seeing them for 15 years,
Wow.
every single week. And I say that about a marriage because their marriage is one that you would generally say, this is not salvageable. But they have intentionally shown up every week for 15 years because they needed to, because they are not really compatible, but they are both so committed to the relationship.
That's beautiful.
And here they are now. They just graduated their last daughter when many people would be saying, I'm out. Like, last one's out of the house, I'm done.
Right.
And they're not because they have built the foundation, right? And gotten to know each other. They are not strangers. And now they're even more excited to continue working on the relationship. But that's rare. That's rare.
Yeah. It is
It
rare.
takes two people.
But maybe it'll become less rare as we're moving out of this, space of I don't know, because relationships really do seem I see my stepdaughter, she's 18 and her generation and how they perceive relationships and
Yes.
marriage and all of that, and it's definitely different than we did at that age.
Mhm.
It is a little concerning, but I was reading my other daughter's 10 and a half, and I was reading her writing journal, which I
Mm.
love to do because she's a beautiful writer. I'm an author, so I'm really into what she writes in her journal at school. And she wrote something yesterday that was like, "When I grow up, I want to live an exciting life. I want to have a handsome, caring husband and two golden retrievers and two daughters named whatever." And I'm
Oh,
like, where some people would say, "No, why is that your goal? You should go to medical school and you
mhm.
should only focus on you and your career." It's like, wow, maybe I'm doing something right where she feels like this is an ideal, which we've moved away from.
Right. Right.
I
She
love
also
that for
said
our
she
kids.
wants to have an exciting life. And I'm like,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. So do
I love
I.
that.
So do I. Give me the
Yeah.
excitement.
And you know
Um,
what? I agree. This new generation coming up, marriage rates are actually, I mean, divorce rates are actually going down slightly. And I think a part of it is number one, they're getting married a lot later.
mhm.
And I don't think that they're less committed to marriage. I think they're not interested in being in marriages that aren't going to work. And so I
Well,
think
less people are getting married. I mean,
right,
I read an article recently where it's like people are choosing to not marry, like
yeah,
just to be together.
right, that as well, because they're not interested in experiencing the divorce that they've seen, right,
Mhm,
in their families.
mhm. And forgive me if this is overstepping, but you have been divorced.
I have been divorced, yes.
Okay, and what
I
was
was
that like?
married for 28 years.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, you look like a baby.
Oh, thank you. I'm 50. So I
Oh
was married
my
for 28 years. I've been divorced for 2.
oh my god, and I was worried I was if I was categorizing you in my same age group that you'd be like,
No, I'm
not as
I'm a decade older than you are.
geez Louise. Okay, well, I'm glad I didn't offend you, by my, 41-year-old comparison here. But what was it for you that made you realize, you needed to change or you needed to or it wasn't working for you?
Yeah. You know, I had a very difficult marriage that didn't work most of the marriage, but I was also very committed to the marriage. And it wasn't, my father's death was really a catalyst for
Mm.
me finally making the decision, the hard decision to end the marriage. But it still took me another 5 years before I was actually able to do it. And what I did was I worked on myself and I
Because
worked
the
on myself.
statistical average is 5 years. Okay,
Yes, it
okay.
is. It is. I hit that right on the head.
Mm.
And what I did was I worked on myself and I worked on myself and I worked on myself. And what it didn't do is change the marriage. And ultimately, I had to recognize, and I want women to come to this earlier. We shouldn't suffer, and our family shouldn't suffer for 5 years, right? Or 6 years or a decade before we're willing to finally take that step. I did. And I don't want other women to do that. But I finally had to come to the conclusion that the only way either one of us had a chance of being in a healthier place, right, was for us to be separated. And I did value, because of my family and growing up in a fundamental Christian home and my parents and all of their values for marriage, I valued, and I still do value, marriage very strongly. But what I was doing was I was creating an idol out of marriage, as if staying married is the goal, right,
Right.
instead of health being the goal.
Mhm.
And I had to switch my lens, even as a therapist for a million years, to recognize that I cannot put marriage as this idol in my life when I should be putting health as the priority.
I think it's really refreshing for the listeners and for myself as well to hear from someone like you
Mhm.
who, helps people through these things.
Yeah.
See that even you, the professional, had to make this decision, had to come to
Right.
this place. We're all human at the end of the day, and we're all doing the best we can. So where are you based out of?
Los Angeles.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
I was
I
just
think I
there.
saw that you were, yeah.
Yes.
Did
Yeah.
you have a fun time?
I did, it was really too quick, I packed a lot into 2 days, I'm like a one event per weekend kinda gal these days, so cramming cramming that all into 2 days was a lot, but it was
Oh my gosh.
beautiful, great time, and you see clients virtually or in person, how does
I
that work?
do. I mostly I really completely work virtually now. So I built a little office in my backyard and I see clients from really all over the world. And I work mostly with women
Are you
experiencing.
you're able to see people outside of the
I do. I work outside of California. I work as a relationship coach. And so
Oh!
inside of California, I'm, a licensed
Hello,
psychotherapist.
ding, 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 everyone listening across the globe. That's so good to know. Well, it seems like your work really fulfills you because I will say I also obviously work with women and you do see the shifts and you do see the change when a woman is really committed to wanting to show up differently, if not for anyone but her children, and
Yep.
then recognizing it starts with her.
Yes.
Um, I mean, for me, you defined femininity, but for me, it's when a woman finally realizes, like, I'm going to take care of me now and I deserve that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting, and really, I think part of the reason for the shift and the increase of divorce, what they call gray divorce, right, in women
Yeah.
over a certain age or men, is that our hormones change as well.
Mm.
With that hormone shift, women do tend to have a higher ratio of testosterone to estrogen. And it's biological, because as we shift out of caretaking of our children, we don't need those hormones in the same way. Now, of course, we've still had an entire life bathed in estrogen, and so we are still very much feminine. But it tends to create this kind of like, I don't care anymore, right? I'm going to take care of me. And I think it's a necessary and beautiful shift that needs to happen. Um, I think a lot of women feel shame about it, and a lot of men shame that behavior.
Right,
And
but men can have a midlife crisis and go buy a Ferrari, and it's like, we
right.
don't blink.
And
Okay.
it's fine. Yeah. Yeah. And so I just want to, for women who are in that place, I want to honor that that is also part of you walking in your femininity, just like you said. For you, you see femininity as, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to radically care for me. And so I just want you to honor that. And I wrote a book called Stronger in the Difficult Places.
Wow, you took the words out of my mouth. Okay. What is it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so the book is the same title as my podcast. It's called Stronger in the Difficult Places, and it really outlines complex shame. And it's a story, it's a narrative nonfiction, and it's a self help book. So I explain the 8 steps of overcoming complex shame through the story of my own personal life. Um, Hopefully, to really help a woman who may recognize that she has shame and codependency, figure out how
Okay.
to get out of it.
Adding to cart as soon as we get off. This is a large part of the work that I'm doing on myself right now, is exploring this piece,
Mm.
of my puzzle, as
Hmm.
I'm unraveling so much and healing from so many things. But I love that you wrote this. I can't wait to link to it. And we are on the heels of Mother's Day, although
Mm.
our listeners may be hearing this shortly after Mother's Day. But I want to wish you a fantastic one,
Thank
and
you.
thank you for all of the work that you're doing, for the women
Hmm.
who are lucky enough to come in your path.
Well, thank you for the work that you're doing. You helped me in those years before and right after my divorce. So thank you.
I'm so glad I did. It's so nice to hear that these days, with all of the toxicity and algorithm nonsense on social media. You don't even know what you're like. Every time I say to my husband or a friend, like, I'm done with this, I'm done with this, someone will say, you helped me so much. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'll stick it out a little more. So
Keep
thank you.
going.
Where can everyone find you?
You can find me at my handle, Dr. Zoe Shaw, DrZoe SHAW, pretty much anywhere, website, Insta, TikTok, all the places.
Yep. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to check the show notes. If you're listening old school podcast style, come over to the YouTube side. Like,
Yeah.
it's fun to watch us in real time, I think. If you have any questions about this episode or any others, or you just want to connect, have questions about your own divorce and co-parenting journey, you can find me at info@momsmovingon.com. And we so appreciate you being here with us today on the Moving On Method. It is a journey, and we're honored to be a part of it.
Yes.
Dr. Zoe, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.